With all the success you've had, do you still face, are you currently facing any fears, or are there fears about the horizon?
Man, I have to give you amazing props. You're such a curious person about the people that you talk to. I love it. I love it, man.
Thank you.
The answer is, thank you. Are you kidding me? I've been on a ton of podcasts and people just same questions.
Welcome to the Idea Climbing Radio Show. Thank you for tuning in. Anthony, thank you for making the time to be here. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, I appreciate you coming and showing up how you do so we could do some good things for the folks in the world.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about dark work, the role it plays with bringing big ideas to life. But first, I got to say that Anthony Trucks is a CEO, speaker, author, and identity shift coach who helps people upgrade how they operate to be, do, and have more. With over a decade of experience in running his own company, formerly Identity Shift, now Dark Work, he has developed a proven method to help individuals and organizations achieve their full potential by shifting their identity to reach peak performance. Anthony's journey from foster care to the NFL to successful business owner and media personality has inspired thousands of people to overcome their challenges in pursuit of their dreams. This is going to be fun. So with the dark work, before we get into some of the strategies, some of the nuts and bolts of it, tactics, tricks, and tips, tell us, what is it? How did you discover it? What's your story with dark work?
Oh, man, that's a good question, I think, to kick off, because I think for a lot of folks are like, it sounds good, but I'll give you the real concise aspect. Dark work is the work you do in the dark that allows you to win in the light. For me, my work is rooted in identity, which is who you are. We're not thinking about who you are. And it's something that's programmed over time. All of us, we get programmed through teachers, preachers, coaches, leaders, but mostly experiences. And so how you experience life determines who you are, how you live your life. And so dark work for me became prevalent when I was, for the first time actually that I can recall, was 15 years old. I was bad at a game called football. We all know the game. And I played it. I was horrible. And then at one point I was like, I'm done with this. I chalked it up. I was out of it. And then I was like, no, at one point I wanted to get back in and be great. But I had to do things that were uncomfortable, out of my comfort zone. They weren't who I saw myself to be. But the interesting thing is the more you do these things, yes, they're uncomfortable and difficult, but the more you feel in line with the kind of person who does that thing. And after a while, you stick in it. You suck in the beginning, you get better over time. And then after a while, now you become the kind of person who does that. And so dark work isn't just some work you do, but I call it work that allows you to become the kind of person who wants what you want, right? Because the best achievement isn't what you get. It's really who you become as you get it. And it's a hard fought battle. The more difficult, the better. And when you get to a certain point in time, I want you to have what I call a dominator's identity. And that dominator's identity is one who knows what they've done behind the scenes. They are not going to fail in the light. And so I say you show up to defining moments in your life with a dark work mentality of, I've done too much work in the dark to lose in the light. And so when you want something more and you want to have more money, fix your marriage, be in better shape, be a better parent, it's going to take a lot of dark work, but you're not doing that dark work just to get the outcome. You're doing it so you feel like the kind of person that does that. And then here's the beautiful end result to all of it. After a while, you kind of like almost like a temperature setting. Like you set a temperature and it takes energy from the thermostat or right to the HVAC to build up. But once it gets there, it can hold a little while. It's almost like it's just there. And so when your set point is to be structured, organized, disciplined, consistent, that's your new set point. Now things just seem to flow into your life almost effortlessly, right? When really what it was is you became the kind of person who does the things other people struggle with without even stressing off of it. So dark work quite literally is the path to anything you want, because it'll give you the thing you want, but even more importantly, it'll make you become the kind of person that gets the things you want.
Oh, I am looking forward to diving into that. Let's go back. Let's start at the beginning. You mentioned programming when we're younger. Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
What is the programming? When does it set in? When do people have to start to realize to deal with it? But where does it even start with programming with us?
I mean, it's the moment you come out of the womb, man. Everything that's around you. Think about like so. For example, I don't speak Chinese. I don't speak Spanish, right? But I was programmed to speak English. Why? Because my environment, and through experiences of seeing somebody do something, say, dad, mama, right? And so what it is all of us have these experiences. Here's a way to think about it. If you have been bitten by a dog, there's a certain mentality you have around a dog, right? If you have never been bitten by a dog, again, a certain mentality. If me and you are in a room and you've never been bitten by a dog, and I have, if somebody brings in this dog, there's a great possibility that you're like, oh, look, a dog. And I'm like, a dog, and I'm out the back door. The only separation between those moments is the experience that we had. And for a lot of us, we're not understanding or paying attention to the experiences we have are wiring us a certain way that we don't even consciously see. And so when we show up to moments in life, we are optimistic, pessimistic, happy, sad. There's different ways we function, and we think it's the world's like that. And I go, no, it's actually less about the world and the stimuli. It's more about how you have been programmed through your experiences, most of the time unaware, that's creating this life you have. Because all of us, we just move. Like, not everybody every day is consciously thinking about processing how they're thinking. Like, I'm not thinking about the way I'm thinking. I'm just doing my thing. And I go, man, I got this great stuff. Or I go, man, my life sucks. And I go, it's not that your life sucks. It's just that the way that you are responding to life stimuli sucks. And honestly, it's not even 100% your fault. You weren't paying attention. Nobody taught us to do this as a kid. We were just kind of living our lives. Parents taught us things. Teachers taught us things. School, TV, news, radio. And so we just kind of little by little just started embracing certain pieces, bringing them into our identity and living as if that's who we are. But the problem is how you're functioning if it's not what you want. If you don't have what you want, if you don't feel the way you want, it's not something where you can sit back and go, oh, I'm helpless. I go, no, you just have to put yourself in the new experiences to rewire, which is great because we can do that with neuroplasticity, the way that stimuli works. Like, you can quite literally show up differently 6 months from now if you intentionally subject yourself to different things. And we've seen this happen. It's already happened to us. It's like thinking about the nerdy guy who's like a nerd in school, and all of a sudden he goes and gets in great shape. He's got muscles, all of a sudden he's a different person. Like, he has a different cadence, a different confidence, different flow. Like, but he used to be a nerd and everybody used to make fun of him. But what he did is put himself through an experience of the weights or dieting or lifting whatever it was, or whatever small moments of looking in the mirror and loving himself. And now he shows up differently. You can't tell him nothing. So we've seen it happen. It can be part of our futures, but only if we choose it and lean into it and reprogram ourselves intentionally.
How do you realize the program? How do you become aware of your programming in the first place? Because you can't work on something if you're not aware of it. How do you become aware of it?
Well, you stop and pause and think about what you just did. It's that simple. I mean, think about this. If I'm in traffic, right, and somebody cuts me off, my immediate thing is like, I freak out, right? You can pause and stop and go, is there a better way to think about this? Do they know me? Do they not know me? Are they just in a bad mood themselves? And think and actually separate yourself. It's a great book by Michael Singer. It's called The Untethered Soul. And he talks about the concept that you, in fact, are not who the world sees. You're the person behind the scenes curating and crafting the persona the world sees. And usually you want to get that close because then you feel authentic and it's connected. But some people behind the scenes are a different person the world sees. And when you're able to stop and step back and look at yourself, you can analyze and adjust the little pieces of you. It may feel uncomfortable. There may be a weird feeling in the beginning, but after a while, the more you do something, the more you feel aligned with it. And so essentially to see yourself is to stop, pause, and look. Now, I will say this. I love this statement by a guy, and I think it's like Tim Murphy, and he says, it's hard to see the label when you're inside of the jar. Which also goes to show that a lot of us, we're functioning and we may have a viewpoint, but self-image, it's an interesting concept because you may not be what you think you are. So it's good to have other people in your world point it out and actually have your ego drop a little bit to listen to them. Because if you can do that, you might give yourself permission to improve in some space. So you can see yourself, like to an extent, you can see yourself. But to be honest, the best way is for somebody else to point out and not have this massive argument with them and go, okay, you're right. I am a little bit, short-tempered. I am sometimes a little bit lethargic. I am sometimes not very joyous, or maybe I am too overly optimistic, right? You can take the feedback and process it. And what I've done is over the years, it's not easy, but listening to my wife and my kids and my colleagues, the more I listen and pay attention, I'm able to be more critical of myself without being, self-deprecating. I think that's one of the things people struggle with is they think that if they see fault in themselves, that they're going to beat themselves up and go crazy. And I go, no, it's not the case. It just gives you information. And if you understand how to do that without thinking you're a horrible human, you can proactively be dangerous. And it's weird to say like dangerous, but here's what I think. I think the most dangerous persons in the world are the ones who can selectively choose to go forward and get after something to where every time you see them, every month, every 2 months. They're always a different person because they're proactively seeking areas of improvement. They're dangerous to the weaker pieces of the world. They're dangerous to the ones who want to take the world down because they're the ones that are going after getting great. They're dangerous to the weaker people. I don't explain it like that, but it's like the weaker self of them. Like if they're looking at themselves going, you're not doing this very well. Now this, and they can proactively choose to be better. These people show up in amazing ways that the world needs. It's these folks that can point something out and be stronger and be better, not at the cause of somebody else's pain, but the benefit of them because this person's improving. For example, if I want to be a great dad, I could be dangerous to the weaker part of me by going, look, I'm not being very communicative or supportive with my kids. I'm being short-tempered. I'm not letting them be themselves. I can look at myself and go, it's time to change that, Anthony. I can be on it for myself. And then my kids have a better dad, right? As a husband, I could be a better husband the same way, a better business owner the same way. And so for all of us, when you can pause, stop, and look, it gives you a chance to actually open up the doors of possibility for everyone around you to be better.
So when someone points out your faults, you accept them, you stop fighting it. Then what happens? Okay, my faults are whether I'm lethargic or I have a bad temper, whatever it might be. Once you're aware of the faults, I mean, what do you do to start change? Where's the starting point of change once someone points out your faults?
Well, first off, you want to make sure the person you're listening to is a person you respect, because there's some people that'll tell you some things that you don't need to listen to. Just so we're clear there, right? Everybody's perspective isn't gold. So there's selective people in my life that I go, okay, I'm going to listen to them close to me. There's also people that I listen to if I desire to be in some manner like them. Not them completely, but like if I like the way they think or function or lead their team or lead themselves, I'll listen. But let's say somebody points something out that I respect that I now have to look at. The first stage is, can I absorb this and swallow this without my ego trying to fight for me? When I say ego, I look at it as this ego is not a bad thing. It has a bad negative connotation for the most part, but ego is in fact the best part of us, right? It's when my sense of self is that I'm a good dad, I'm a good athlete, a good business owner. If you challenge that, I will battle with my ego. I go, no, I'm a good dad. I'm a good business. I'm great at this, right? My ego will protect me with actions to stay in alignment. When I played football, my ego was, I'm a good football player. So I lifted weights, I ate right, I read the playbook, practiced hard because my ego said, do this to continue to be this. So at first, when somebody says something, your ego's going to want to go like, hey, what are you talking about? Because the ego doesn't like the tag. But if you can lay that thing down for a little bit, what happens is you can actually go, you're right. I'm not great there. Now what? Like you just said. And this is where I go, okay, if that's the way that I am, what led to that? What are the habits, the patterns, the actions? What are the experiences that wired me to function this way or see things this way? And it may be something you can do by yourself. Maybe you have to get some outside help. Like we coach people through this personally. It's not a random thing to do. But once you get a chance to see, oh, that's the pathway that led here, you can go, okay, great. We see that. Well, where do you want to go? And we'll start to talk about, you should think about what the goal should be. What do I want to operate differently? Do I want to operate in a different kind of manner? Okay, if I do, what habits, patterns, and actions lead to that? And you're going to be kind of met with things that are not your norm. When I want to be good at football, I found that like I didn't feel like the football player. I had to do things I hadn't done. I had to lift weights, run routes, catch footballs, and like I didn't feel like that guy. But I realized I wasn't good. And if I wanted to be good, I had to do those things. And so now what happens, I'm met with moments that suck because now it's like, dang, I want to be this thing. I feel like I'm this over here, but I want to feel like this. But the things that lead up to it are so out of my norm. But here's what it looks like. You're not supposed to wake up every day and feel like that now. You got to earn it. Just like the patterning took place to wire to this, it takes time to unwire and wire to this. But it takes place in daily drips. So if somebody points something out, you see it that a thing I should work on. Okay, Grandma, work on that. Now you lean into it, and here's what it looks like. Day one, it feels way uncomfortable. I don't want to do this. It makes your butt pucker. I say it's super uncomfortable. It's like, oh, your stomach twists and turns. And then the first week's like that, and the second week's like that, the third week's like that. The first month is like this, right? The second month is kind of like that, but that middle of that third month, like I get some progress. I feel a little bit better, right? Then like the end of that week, I feel a little more better. And third, month, I'm like, I feel a little bit different. Then you just keep moving. And next thing you know, you pop up 6 months later and you can't even put yourself back into the headspace of what you were before.
Mhm.
And it initially goes from like the first time you do something, it's a 10 of 10 discomfort. And you learn something and do it again, it's a 9. Still uncomfortable, right? And it's an 8.5. And it's, it's an 8, it's a 7. And eventually it gets to the point where there's zero discomfort. And most people go, all right, I can do it. It's painless. I go, no, no, no. You're missing out on something. It's not painless. It's joy. Think about this podcast when you started it, right? I'm like, I'm gonna start a podcast. Somebody's like, you don't know how to podcast. You're like, I know I don't. But you're like, I'm gonna do it anyway. So you start doing it. And at first it's like, did I ask the right question? Did I edit this right? Are they gonna like, and then you learn something and you do it again. And it's still not 100% perfect. It's a 9 and it's an 8. And it's after a while, it's like, let's hit record and go. And it's not that it's painless. You're like, I look forward to the interview. Let's have some fun. Let's have a good conversation, because you've gone through that journey to where you identify personally as a podcaster now. That's a version of a dominator's identity. Because to dominate, here's what dominate means, by the way. It means to govern and exert control. It doesn't mean to overbear and take over people. But I want to show up to moments in my life that matter with a dominator inside of me who goes, I can govern any situation and I can exert control over the weaker version of me to show up how I have to in these moments. I'm creating a confident, stepping out person who, when I go into a new space or new area, I have what it takes to succeed or find the path to success. When you haven't done the work and you don't have that person in you, everything is scary. And so the more you can do that, say in podcasting, it'll show up if you want to speak.
Mhm.
It'll show up if you want to start a business. It'll also show up if you want to take on some new, task or in the backyard, right? You go, I could do this, but it's because you're borrowing it from somewhere else and applying it somewhere new.
Well, I love the end result that you just said. If you could talk a little bit more, how do you get to and through the first month? A little more advice there would be great, because I love the end,
Yeah.
but that to and through the first month could be tough.
Yeah, what does Robin Sharma says? Change is, he says it's hard in the beginning, ugly in the middle, beautiful at the end. That's what he says.
Mhm.
And I go, it is. It's hard in the beginning, because the hard initial part is like leaning in and doing the thing that's uncomfortable. The problem is most people, they don't get disciplined to a plan. This is the thing where people talk about you don't need motivation, you need discipline. And here's the thing that's 100% true, but there's a piece missing for most of those people explaining this. The discipline that most people are looking for, they go seeking, is discipline to an emotion. I feel motivated. I can do this. I'm going to get this going, right? And then what happens is, as soon as that emotion disappears because you woke up on the third day and it's uncomfortable, you don't do it. You're disciplined again to the emotion. So the emotion says, I don't want to. So you don't do the action. What I do is I call this designing your dark. Because dark work, to its extent, it's unseen, unsexy, behind the scenes stuff that people do that nobody celebrates you for. It's just you by yourself clapping for yourself. But that's the stuff that molds you differently, right? And so what you do is you step back and go, separate from myself, if I was to craft a person who had these traits in life, what would they have to have as daily actions, habits that they would put in place? What patterns would they go through or trigger when something happens? How would they respond? Like a complete silo, separate person. And then once that's created, you then go, all right, I'm going to step into those actions, habits, and patterns. And now what you're doing is being disciplined to a plan. Even the word discipline means disciple, to follow, plan, just follow a plan. So when you have a plan in place, which is I call it design your dark again, now I can step in and go, all right, I am not identifying with the outcome. I'm identifying with the efforts. Can I show up and be the kind of person that gives the effort to this plan, even though I don't want to do it? Because I don't care who you are. You are in day 3, 4, 5, 6, you're not going to want to do it. I don't care how great the outcome seems. It could be desirable. Unless somebody's life is on the line, the motivation dwindles quickly. But if there's a plan in place and it says in the morning at 6 a.m. when you get up, you go out there, you stretch, you warm up, you get a workout in, you're going to wake up one day and go, this bed is so warm. I don't want to get up and go out. But you stay disciplined to the plan. There's no, like Kobe used to say, there's no negotiating. I've made the contract of myself. I'm not negotiating the contract. Here's what it says, Kobe, let's do it. He's not battling the world. He's battling the weaker version of him that doesn't want to get out of bed, and he goes. And the more you beat that person up, the less they show up every day. And after a while becomes the kind of person you are to do it, to where in the beginning where it's hard to do it, eventually it's impossible not to do it. You can't see yourself not doing it. And so that little journey is the one that people have to go through. So when I would say that first part of the process,
Mhm.
figure out who you want to identify as, figure out the steps it takes to build that into somebody, make a plan of when it'll happen. Not like a maybe Monday I'll do this. Like I have my calendar right here, and there are 5 different colors, and it's structured from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, some of it's chill time, family time, but it's in there. I don't get to determine how I feel as the thing that will drive me to do it or not. It's got to get done. So I do it. And the more I do it, the more I become the kind of person who does it, the less it's stress, the more it becomes who I am. And it's what's cool about it is I call it effortless effort over time. You're giving effort, but it feels effortless because now it's who you are to do it. But in the beginning, it will be hard. It's supposed to be hard. And it's this, we'll call it one last caveat before I let you talk again. It's interesting that I've found over life, a lot of folks have this apprehension to do hard things. But if I stop and pause, I'll ask them, I go, so it's going to be hard. Yeah, it's going to be hard. Okay, great. Hey, tell me, what are you the most proud of in life? And they'll outline something. I'm proud of being a parent, proud of this business I built. I'm proud of this thing I created. Okay, great. How easy was that? And they go, easy? It's hard. I'll go, interesting. So the thing that you're the most proud of, you're kind of proud because it was the hardest thing you did. They go, yeah. I go, then why are you avoiding the hard thing? Right. So it's really a matter of stepping in and going, the harder it is, the more pride, joy, confidence I'll have in it. So if I want to develop the strongest version of me, I need to actually pursue the hardest things I can.
So when you're doing that, to get through the beginning, that's great. The end sounds great too. How do you, for lack of a better term, how do you keep on keeping on? Let's say if it's 6 months, you hit month 3. How do
Yeah.
you stick with it in the middle?
You actually will find that in the middle of it is ugly. It's you have ups and downs in different days because you haven't arrived at the destination yet. But it's celebrating small wins is a big piece of it. We all know that. It's stopping and pausing and looking at this little progress you've made. But you start to feel like this little by little a transition. There's an interesting concept for humanity. We have this desire to be in alignment. Whenever there's actually studies that show that if I was to give you 5 very clear points of you being incorrect, you will still fight me. Not because you're stupid, because you have such a desire to be in alignment with who you see yourself to be. A lot of our choices are tied to our alignment with who we see ourselves, which is your self-image, which is your identity. How you see yourself, it makes you say, this is who I am. I'm going to operate like this. If not, you're going to go back to your room at night, look in the mirror and go, what's wrong with you? Anthony, this isn't who you are, right? And we feel that, an emotional, stressful level, we feel that kind of disconnect. And so the big thing I tell you is you have to be able to have confidence in that alignment. It's a good thing. It's bad in the beginning because you're going to break the alignment. We call homeostasis also. You're going to break that because you're used to doing this thing. But the more you start doing this over time, the more and more you feel in alignment with doing this thing. And so it's ugly in the middle, but there does become this moment where it breaks through and it becomes easier because the alignment is with the newer person you've built. That's how it functions. So the more you do it, the more you feel like the kind of person that does it, the easier it becomes to do the thing that was initially very hard. Now, how to get past the ugly points? They suck. I know they do. I got a lot of them. We all have them, right? Twofold, I think, will be the big piece here. One is you got to trust the plan. This is why a lot of folks, they struggle is they don't have a plan they trust. They've got a plan, but they didn't spend time developing the plan. When I say that design your dark, if you do it properly, like we do a really big deep dive into 10 areas of life, when you do it properly, you now have this plan that you know you've gone to the depths to create and structure for when you get moving, you know it's going to work. Like, it's a big thing. So in the middle of it, now I have this plan that I know I'm not worried about, is the plan the right plan? The only thing you're battling is, can I get my butt out of bed to do that? Can I force myself to lean in? When you have a twofold of, I don't want to do this, and you're going, I don't know if it's going to work, is even the right plan, you're smoked. But yeah, man, put a fork in it's done, right? But if you got a plan that you can trust, you're going to be able to battle yourself properly. And then the other piece comes in, which is great. You need to have somebody that helps keep you accountable. I'm not
Mhm.
saying you need a babysitter. I'm not saying you need, because we're grown-ups, right? We don't need someone to show up every day and go, hey, did you eat your peas and carrots?
Yeah.
But someone that, like, I have a guy I meet with today, actually later today. We meet every 2 weeks at 12 o'clock on a Thursday. And the big thing is it's like the only time we talk, really, but it's just like an hour of the two of us. How's life? Here's how life is. And we go, what did you do from our last call? What are you going to have planned for next call? And so what I do is I have this thing where I know in 2 weeks, I'm going to show up to that call. He is going to expect this of me, man to man. And so 100% the things I put on my docket for us to keep check on, like, I don't always want to do them, but I know that the plan is good. And I got somebody who's going to be showing up at a call with me in 2 weeks. And I don't want to show up to that call going, I didn't get it done, because he ain't going to let it ride. And for me, what it allows me to do is realize that when I get that thing done and I push past myself, somebody else was going to be in the flow paying attention. And so while I might let myself down, I won't let somebody else down. It's an integrity piece for me. And so I show up. And there's studies that show that if you look at like 100 people that have a goal or aspiration, 83% of people are vastly more likely to succeed if they have an accountability partner. Just having somebody to talk to, bounce ideas off of, someone that's going to make sure that they're getting some things done, 83% more likely. So the plan should not be this in the dark by myself. It could be a wife, a spouse, somebody else doing that dark work,
Mhm.
but someone should be there to help you celebrate, to get you off your butt when you don't want to move. And it's that progress that helps you create that emotion, realign, and you feel good. And I think for me, those are the big pieces of my own life that matter, because if not, we can be very talented in making excuses for ourselves that let us sleep better at night. And if we have somebody who won't accept the excuse that's external, it keeps you in motion.
You mentioned a few times personal image, and let's stay in the middle
Yeah.
for now. Sounds like it's becoming a huge, well, this is just what I heard. The personal image shift could be a huge thing. How do you help that shift along? How do you make that happen? Because it sounds like it starts to happen in the middle, you're fighting it, but at the same time, like 50-50, you're accepting it. What do you
You've already
do
got
to shift your personal image?
Well, you already have a self-image. And this is so self-image is your identity. There's a statement, I think I heard it first by Jay Shetty. He says, I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. It's the cast out perception of what I believe you see me to be. And that self-image is derived from how I've seen my life, how the people I respect have seen me. And what's crazy is you will have battles because your self-image is set, and it's also set for other people. And when you start adjusting that, they let you know, like, hey, dude, this is weird. Why are you acting like, oh, now you want to eat healthy all of a sudden? Oh, look at this guy. He's starting to run and lift weights. Yeah, I am. Right. And so you have the outside world adjusting, but you have a self-image also. But at this point, if we're talking about this moment, you have already realized you don't like that self-image and what that self-image is creating for you. Now, you probably didn't pay attention to how it got built, right? But it exists. It's not something you're making. It's something you're paying attention to now. And so that self-image, which is your identity, it's how you see yourself and you think the world sees you. Well, now what happens is you start going, all right, I got to change this. And here's why. You cannot have an internal self-image that is incongruent with the outside world you see. Meaning, if I internally have a self-image of I'm stupid and I'm broke, you're not going to have an outside world of intelligence and money, because you're not going to take actions separate from what you see as your self-image. You'll actually live your life in a way to anchor the internal to the outside. So for example, if I go, I'm stupid, if that's my internal self-image, my identity tells me like I'm dumb, I'm a dumb guy, I don't know very much. Anytime something pops up to learn, I'll avoid it. I'll have tension there unconsciously. Anytime something pops up or when something happens where I have to test my intelligence, I won't bring myself fully out. So I can go, look, see, told you I'm stupid. Told you I'm not smart. So I live my life in a way to do that. And so the self-image is very difficult because it gives you a sense of peace because you know that alignment thing pops up. But when you're able to step back and go, all right, I don't like the outside world that I'm living in. I don't like my house, my body, my relationships, my car, whatever it is. I don't like these things. I want something more and better. You have to first go internally and go, well, if everything that I have is an extension of who I am, which it really is, the way you see yourself function creates those things, then you got to turn in and go, all right, how am I functioning that's creating that? What self-image do I hold that makes this come to my life? Why do I keep getting in bad relationships? Well, maybe my self-image says I don't deserve better. Let's take a look. Why don't I deserve better? Why do I think that about myself? Oh, because I haven't, I've been unfaithful or I've lied. Okay, cool. Can you control that? Yeah. Okay, be faithful, stop lying. And if you do it over time, you now start to feel like you deserve somebody who respects that. You deserve somebody who will embody that and won't break those things themselves. So all of a sudden, you see yourself in a relationship where there's no lying and there's faithfulness and there's these unique little pieces. And so what I look at is go, hey, if you're able to stop and pause and go, hey, how do I see myself based on what I see in my life? And then go, all right, I'm going to start adjusting those things. And the only way to adjust them is through action. This is not the secret. You can't sit in a couch somewhere and go, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. I have $1 million. Nah, you got to work, right? And the more you work, the more you start changing. And here's why. The reason your self-image is the way it is because it has proof through experience. The experience you've gone through has provided you proof that goes, I'm stupid, I'm broke, I don't know how to do things, whatever. I'm just making the negative up. But what if you had proof of the opposite? What if you had proof that you're intelligent, that you can do things, you're a great human being? It changed the whole game, right? You'd be like, yeah, I'd see myself different. Okay, great. Let's think about it this way. What needs to happen to get the proof? Oh, I don't know. Actions. If you take an action, that's going to be uncomfortable, out of the norm, not who you are. But if you take these actions, eventually you get new proof. Oh, wow. I passed that test. I got this degree. Man, I've read this book. I've got a higher IQ. You start having proof of this. Well, now your internal self-image, like a temperature, goes up and up and up and up. And guess what happens? Your outside world starts to match that because the unconscious actions you take, the places you go, what you start consuming as social media or books or TV shows, it starts to change to match how you feel. And then little by little, you start seeing yourself in a different light and you're elevating. Your actual self-image raises, your life outside of you raises. I don't know a lot of people who think they're like incredibly crazy cool and smart and intelligent living in squalor, right? They usually have a lot of cool, nice, good things. They're doing great in relationships because they earn that. And I also don't see a lot of people who think crappy of themselves as millionaires on boats, and hanging out with great businesses. If you have that, that's what happens around you. And so for me, what I like to do is tell people like there's nothing wrong with you at all. You have all the intelligence and skill set necessary at a certain point. But if you want to have something more, we have to adjust that self-image, your identity. And we got to do it through dark work. And that's a long, arduous process. It's not an overnight thing. And it's not something you do with the celebration from the outside world. You actually do it for the most part with like one other accountability person, but most of the time it's you by yourself doing your own thing. But I'm telling you, man, that's where you fall back in love with you. Like when I first did this intentionally, I had divorced my wife. I was out of the NFL. My life was falling apart. Like I was suicidal at one point. I'm like, this sucks, man. I don't even like this life thing. And I had this moment of just like, I don't like this dude. Something's got to change. And I started looking at myself with this really honest eye of what I was doing, how I showed up, what was going on. And then I realized if I'm gonna get out of this hole, I got to start taking actions that are uncomfortable, making apologies, doing work. But nobody was gonna be there with me. It was just me. I didn't have anybody else to every day lean on. Like I had to start being with me because here's the truth. When you're in a funky place, you don't like being alone because you don't like who you're alone with.
Mhm.
And that was me. And I got to this point where I didn't like this dude. And I go, why don't I like this guy? And I go, I don't like what he's doing. So I was like, change what I'm doing. So I changed it. And it was a lot of people that were in my life at that time pointed out I was doing things differently. I was, but in a positive direction. And I would do these things. It would just be me in the mornings, me by myself, me at night. But I'd do the thing. And I'd look in the mirror and go, good job today, Ant. I go to bed, do it again. Good job today, Ant. Do it again. And after 3 months, 6 months, a year, you wake up differently. I was resetting and raising the temperature inside of who I wanted to see myself to be, and my life matched. I then remarried my ex-wife after 3 years divorce, started building businesses and speaking. I built a 7-figure business now. And it's not because of anything more than I'm just not that guy that woke up in 2016 and looked at himself and goes, I hate this guy. I'm a different dude, not because of nothing, but because of that work I've done and continue to do that you don't see. I don't expect someone to see, that only I am really celebrating. But because I've done that work in the dark, you will see me differently in the light.
And how long on average does it take? Did you say, you mentioned that, is it 6 to 12 months or just on it? Because I realize each person's going to be different, but what should people expect?
Yeah. You typically, if you do it right, because I mean, for me, when I did it, I was just wandering around, right? We've codified this process seamlessly now. We can get a very big change in 3 months. And it's a 4-month process. The first month is really designing that process, the plan. I call it designing your dark, because in that window of time, you have to connect and unravel. Who are you? How'd you get here? Drop the ego, get really honest, and then craft a plan that you trust. And then what happens is most people, they love the idea of let's read a bunch of books and be in this space of getting information. I go, that's great. Information's awesome. But you know what'll change your life? Living life. Life is an amazing classroom, man. The people, the experiences, the situations that arrive, I could never plan it out in a million years. So for us, we plan strategically what I want you to do and what you want to do. But the next 3 months, that's where it takes place. That's where the change happens, because you're going to be confronted with week 3 of the plan of you're supposed to go out and take a mile run, but I'm making something up, whatever it may be. And week 3, you go, I don't want to do it. And I go, get your ass up and go. You go, and you do it. And you come back and go, damn, I feel good about myself right now. I don't want to do it. And I did it anyways. I go, yeah, hell yeah, you did. Good job. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you feel you've raised the temperature a notch. So when you show up tomorrow, you're not going to let yesterday you down, because yesterday you battled, damn it. Show up for that person, and it keeps stacking. And if you do it intentionally, structurally, and you track it, in 3 months, you can see a vast difference in people's lives. And then you progressively continue that. Because like I talked about earlier, the goal is to be the kind of person that's always proactively pressing before you move. Like I was reading something yesterday, it talked about the reason that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are successful, a couple other people, is they had a mentor. I can't think of his name, but the mentor said the biggest goal in business is to be paranoid. He's like, operate paranoid. What that means is consider every day as if somebody is coming after you. Something's trying to take your business down. Something's going to mess it all up. Oh, it was Zuckerberg. And he says, if you can operate in that space, it'll help you see the things that you must change before it's too late. Because if you're waiting until you know about it, that means it's been going on for a while and you're probably behind the ball. So operate paranoid. Now, I'm not saying that you should wake up every day and go, my life's going to fall apart. Like, don't be crazy paranoid, right? But have a healthy paranoia of looking at yourself going, where can I be better? So that first 3 months, you now develop somebody different. You see in yourself the capabilities and you go, you know what? I can do this intentionally now in any area of my life. And then what you'll start seeing yourself do is you'll start noticing different things well before you would have used to know them and see them. And you can make adjustments ahead of it. And so when you get this first kind of win, that win changes you a little bit to become the kind of person that sees how to continue to win. That's why a lot of folks, they look at certain people and go, man, these people are just lucky. Man, anything they touch turns to gold. They have that Midas touch. It ain't because they were blessed by God with a special pinky finger power. You know, it's because they rewired themselves. They operated a certain tick to see things before the rest of the world sees it. So yes, you can give somebody the perfect plan, all the money, all the connections, and they'll still fail. You can give somebody else a paper bag, a pair of shoes, and they'll become a millionaire. Like it's not because it's not the thing you gave them, it's what's in them. And what's in them is built through experiences, through dark work.
We have covered a lot of ground in a fairly short period of time. As far as dark work, someone listening, the beginning, the 3 months in, the ending, big idea to life, big idea of changing themselves. If you were to say, if everything we talked about, or maybe something you haven't touched on yet, if you were to tell somebody, at least do this, at least for the love of God, do this one thing, what would you tell them to do?
I would say choose an identity action every day to do. But the hardest thing for a lot of us, like, there's a lot. I could talk about planning, structuring. It's just too much work, but do this. Every day, do something that is out of character with your current identity, but in line with the character of the identity you want to be. So if you want to be a podcaster, right? Every day, do something in the direction of a podcaster. And it should be the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable. It shouldn't be something that's like, oh, I can do that. There's actually a part of your brain called the mid-singular anterior cortex. I think I heard this recently from Dr. Huberman, I want to say. And he talks about you have to do things you don't want to do to grow this part of your brain. But this part of your brain is your willpower. It's your life force. Like those who pass away early have small areas of their brain that have this. Those who live long have bigger sections. So what it comes from is it's not doing something hard you want to do. It's doing something hard you do not want to do, but making yourself do it. And it grows. And so what happens is if you can find every day one thing that you do not want to do, but you know you should do, right? And you do it, you build little by little by little. It's the poor man's way to get there. It may take some time. You may change it every now and then, but if you know that that action is going to get you where you want to get to, do it, especially when you don't want to.
This has been great, Anthony. If people want to learn more, connect with you, what's the place or places they should go to online?
Darkwork.com. Straightforward.
Nice. Thank you. This has been excellent. I appreciate it, Anthony. You've been great.
Welcome.
Scene. Thank you for tuning into the Idea Climbing radio show today. I really appreciate it. I hope you got something great out of it that you can take into your own life and use to be better in your own life. If you want more great shows like this, go to 216thenet.com. You want to see more of my interviews, radio show, and podcast? Go to markjcartertv.com. Again, that's markjcartertv.com and 216thenet.com. Hope to see you on one of those